Hello, welcome to the training for the Service Finder tool to help you finding services across Dorset and also to share them with members of the public and your colleagues. My name's Chris and I'll be explaining how to use the tool and all its different filters today, and also how you can get the most out of combining different filters available to you. The address for the Service Finder tool is here at the top of the screen, so dorset.findservices.org.uk. Once you navigate to that landing page of the website, you'll then need to go to My Account on the right-hand side, click on it and click Login. Now, if you've already got a login, you can simply type it in and press the button. If not, you'll have to click Sign Up and it will take you through a process of confirming your email and giving you access to the tool. If you have any problems with that at all, then please just drop us an email and we'll be able to help you out. So I'm going to press the login button here. This landing page, it does have some options available to you. Personally, I just jump straight into the tool by pressing search here because everything you see on the screen is available in the main tool, but I'll just explain what the different bits do. So you've got this team select option on the right-hand side, and there's a drop-down menu. If I was to select CAN, for example, it shows me these different pathways in the middle of the screen that have been agreed for CAN to use in the tool. All they are preset filters that if I clicked one of these, it would filter the results for services locally against the themes that are listed. So again, there are various different teams there, and if you wish, you can request to have one set up for yourself as well. In terms of client postcode, if I typed in the postcode in the box here and then press search, it will filter by proximity to where that individual lives. And in terms of keyword search, again, I could type a word in this box here and press search and it will filter by that. But as I say, all of these options are available to you in the main Service Finder tool anyway. So I would suggest once you've logged in, just clicking search and it takes you to the main Service Finder tool. So I'm just going to clear out this box at the top, which automatically pre-populates for me for some reason, but it should be blank like that. And now I'm going to talk you through the different filters that we have at the top of the screen here and those ones on the side, and also the general layout and the options available. In the middle of the screen, you'll see that it says we've got 1,500 plus services listed in Service Finder at the moment. They're currently sorted alphabetically. And if I scroll down here, you'll see that we have what we call a service card that explains a little bit about each of the services available. So it lists their name, a description, and then the contact details for each service. Depending on the availability of the service, it may also have sessions too. And if I was to click that, it also gives us a quick overview of where it takes place and what time that happens. If I was to click on this view details button, which I won't do now, but I'll show you later, it gives me the full set of information about this specific service. So if I scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see that I can go through the different pages of services, and also the same option is available to me at the top here. But hopefully what I show you today will show that actually using the various filters together, you don't want to be digging through hundreds and hundreds or even a few pages of services. You want to be using the filters to give you a specific result that's really meaningful and useful for the individual that you're working with. There are a couple of different ways you can view the services. So at the moment we have this card view, but I can also choose to see a list view as well. This is just simply the name, the provider, when it was last assured, and then again the options to view details or sessions. The other option available is map view. That does take a little bit of time to load due to all of the different pins on the map. So I have already opened one for the purpose of this training, and you'll see it now showing me venue-based activities, and the map has been populated with a range of different pointers. If I zoom in, and specifically if I want to zoom in the kind of Dorset area, you'll begin to see these pointers spreading out. Got single ones and then numbers. If I was to click on a particular number, so Blandford, for example, has 12 here, you then see it again. You get more of the singular red dots. And if I click on any one of them, it gives me an overview of the service that's offered at that venue. If there's more than one service, I can click to the right and left, and it will show me the other opportunities offered at the same venue. And equally, I can click around and click through to see the different services offered by that provider or venue. Again, you can zoom out and move around as much as you like. This is kind of partly useful because it obviously gives you a sense of proximity for where people live, but you can actually use an individual's postcode to give you a much more specific result. So I'll show you that later on as well. And then the other thing to be very conscious of when using this particular view is that you're only asking to see services that have a specific venue listed. So anything that's over the phone or anything that's online that isn't listed against a specific venue will be excluded by this particular view. And that's why I think using the main card view is probably the most useful, and using the proximity option, which I'll show you in a minute, also is a kind of powerful way to make sure it's close to where somebody lives. Okay, so a little bit of an explanation there about the cards in the middle. And now I'll talk you through the different options we have for viewing services, organisations, and venues. I'll do that though by explaining the keyword search at the same time. So if I click in this keyword box and I type in something like hounds, I know, for example, there are 4 services in Dorset that are offered by an organisation called Helpful Hounds Assistance Dogs. And happily, those 4 services have turned up. But if I was then to type in Helpful Hounds, you'll find that the number of services increases to 34 services. Now, thankfully, because it's a keyword search, we're sorting by relevance now. And so the first 4 that I see are those delivered by Helpful Hounds Assistance Dogs. But if I scroll down, you'll also find other services that have the word helpful included in their title or potentially in their description in some way. So it's just about being a little bit clever, a little bit savvy when it comes to using the keyword search. And ideally, you'll be using filters, I think, to find your results anyway. If you're looking for a specific service that you know of already, then you probably don't need the service finder for that one-off service. But you can use the keyword search if you want to narrow down to a particular name or a particular word that you know. So I mentioned that we can display service results in different ways. So at the moment, we're seeing all the individual services. But if I click on organisation, now what you'll find is it groups those services under their provider. So I don't just see one of Helpful Hounds services, I'll see all of the services that are listed under Helpful Hounds Assistance Dogs. Now this provider has more than 3 services, and because of that, I have to click this button at the bottom and it will show me the remaining services there. The reason we do that is so that you don't have to scroll through pages and pages if every provider has, say, 10 services. We give you a kind of flavor of it, and then you click the button to open it out. If I move across to venue, we'll also find that Helpful Hounds is listed as a venue for these services. So again, they're clustered under that venue. And if I scroll down and click show more services, I see the 4 services under that particular venue. This is useful, for example, if a venue has different providers offering services. So I could type in Allendale, which I believe is a centre in Wimborne. And if I scroll down, we now have the peer support group that takes place there from Aging Without Children Dorset, but we also have the Chitter Chatter Club offered by the Chitter Chatter Club. So again, quite a neat and useful way to look at more services that may be under a particular location. And you can get to this also by looking at individual services as well. So I'm going to scroll back up. I'm going to move back to the service view. And then I'm also going to make sure I clear out this keyword search bar now. So I'm going to press the X there, because without doing that, it will apply that to any other filters that I have open. So I know that I'm back to the top level when I've got over kind of 1,500 results. But yeah, if you ever find that your filters are kind of ending up quite quickly with no results, then it's quite possible you've left a keyword in the search bar. So just try to remember to clear that. Okay, so now I'm going to take you through the different filters available on this left-hand side. some of which are very useful, others less so, and I'll explain each as we go. So I mentioned before on the main screen about pathways, which are kind of predetermined kind of filter sets that teams have asked us to put in. So if I click support for carers and apply that filter, then this is just a general one that already has a carer filter associated with it. As useful as they are, I think it's better to come up with your own combinations for the clients that you work with and to save them specific to yourself. So we can set this up for any team, but I'll show you later how you can save your own combinations of filters for yourself as well. The next one is prices. So we've got 1,500 services again. I'm going to open up this box and we've got the various levels of price displayed. What I will say though is that this is the entry point price. So if a service is free for people on benefits and then say £5 for people on low income and £10 for anyone above that, they would be listed against free in the data set. Now, the reason for that is because the cheapest entry point is free. However, when you look at a particular description, it will probably clarify for you if there's more information known. So for example, here it says price from £0, and then the price description says free online information. If, for example, this one was free for members of the public on low income and £10 for those of a higher income, that would be stated in this extra section here. So I would say that pathway and the prices filters, they have a limited use, but I would say that the much more useful options are the ones we're coming on to next. So neighbourhoods, if I open that out, you'll see that we have an overview of the different areas across Dorset. So Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, and then we also have East Dorset, Purbeck, North Dorset, West Dorset and Weymouth and Portland for the wider Dorset Council area. If I click on all local, it will tick all of them, and it's now showing me services that are offered to people who live in any of these areas. I can remove individual ones of these and reduce down the total number of services until I get to a specific collection that I like. And equally, I can clear them all out and then choose, say, Weymouth and Portland and Purbeck and add them to my filters here. The key thing to remember when looking at these neighbourhoods is that this is all about eligibility. So this is whether or not someone who lives in these locations is eligible for the services you're looking for. The reason we do that and not that we don't apply a filter that says show me everything that is in Purbeck, the reason it's about eligibility is because there may be a service in Christchurch, for example, that's available on the phone and people in Purbeck are eligible for it, and we wouldn't want to exclude that just because it wasn't based in the Purbeck area. If a helpline or a particular number or an online piece of information is useful for these individuals in these locations, we want to make sure that they can see that as well. I will explain though how you can look at proximity in a moment as well. So I'm going to clear those out. The other option in here is national services as well. Currently, we only maintain the data for the local services, so everything other than these, but we are about to get permission to maintain this as well. So there may be some inaccuracies in the national data, but we hope to address them very shortly. I'm just going to clear those tags out again. So next we come on to type of service. So this is a drop-down menu, and you get basically a list of different kind of themes for the services that you might be interested in. So hopefully you'll get used to them after using the tool a little bit, but one of them, for example, is digital inclusion. If I click on that, I now reduce my services down to 18 services. So that might be a small enough number for me to be confident to look through these with a client at any time. But if I was looking for something a bit broader, so for example, mental health and wellbeing support, when I apply that tag, I end up with 376 services. So it's very likely I'm going to want to add more tags, more filters to make sure that I can then review the services properly. After type of services, you've got circumstances. Again, very popular option for filtering. And again, it's a drop-down menu that you can have a look at. What you're doing though when you use the circumstance filter is you're basically telling the tool that you want a specific service that primarily targets this particular client group or this particular circumstance. So for example, if I choose LGBTQ+, I'm telling it to only show me services that target that particular client group. So again, reduced down to 19, which may be, again, enough to look at. What you've got to remember is if the service is open to everyone, so something like citizens advice services, for example, or other ones, then they will not be tagged with every circumstance. This is only where the service is specifically targeted that group. But again, if I typed in something like older person, we'll find that there are 193 services targeting that group, and I'd probably want to apply some more filters in that situation. Okay, so that explains a little bit about these side filters, and now I'm going to take you through the options we have at the top as well. And then after this, I'll be combining the filters to show you just how powerful it is and how quickly you can get to a meaningful result for the person you're working with. So we've got an age option here. If I open that out, we've got two options. I can type in a date of birth, for example, my own. And if I close this screen, you'll then see that we have applied my age, 42, to the services available in the Service Finder. The Service Finder generically has a 0 to 120 age range. The reason for that is we had a few people in Dorset who are over 100, and we didn't want to exclude them. And where possible, we've made sure a service is clarified if there's a particular age category it's open to, or if it's open to everyone. If I clear that out and go back to age again, you do also have the option for typing in a specific age instead, or putting in an older age, for example, and then again it will filter the results based on that particular age you've put. So I'm going to clear those tags, and then we've got gender specific services. So this is an area for development. At the moment, what it's asking is, has a service told us whether they are only open to males or females specifically? So we are not making a judgment on how that service defines who is a male or a female, or how people who attend those services define whether they're male or female. But this is just where the service has defined that as being a male-only service or a female-only service. So if I click on male-only, you'll see there's a limited number of services like Andy's Man Clubs. We see also there's a chaps evening, Christchurch Men's Shed. So some very specific services intended for men only. And then equally, if I click on female only, we'll see a limited number, Christchurch Women's Institute, clothing gift bags for women, crafty ladies, similar sorts of services that have identified as being only for females. But again, the definition of that we leave to each of the services. One of the relatively new in the last, I think, 6 months or so developments for the tool that we think is extremely powerful is this availability filter. So if I click on here and then I click the green button, change the red button to green, I now have the option to choose time of the week in which an activity might take place. So you might be working with an individual that's got children or work commitments and they're only free on a Tuesday evening. If I click Tuesday evening and close this box, I'm now seeing only services that are open on a Tuesday evening. Equally, you can combine it, so it could be Tuesday evening and all day Saturday. And now I'm seeing only services that are open at least on one of those times that I've listed in this filter. The key thing to remember with this filter is that it's only as good as the data we're given. So again, if there's a service that takes place on a Monday 1 month and it's a different day every month after that, then it may be excluded when you use this filter because it doesn't have a regular day. Equally, if something is an online service and available all the time, then when you click on this filter, it will show at any point in the week because it's available at any time. We try and make sure the data is as up to date as possible, but again, each filter has its own limitations depending on the information we've been provided with. So I'm going to turn that filter off and just close it. And as you see, we're back to the 1500 results. Okay, last few filters at the top here. For some reason, this is auto-populated again, so I'm going to get rid of that. But we have a box here for client postcode. So I'm going to start typing in a local postcode, and you'll see what it's done is automatically applied that postcode in the filter box. It's also acknowledged that I live in the Bournemouth area and therefore I'm eligible for Bournemouth services. And it's also acknowledged that everyone is eligible for national services. I'm going to get rid of the national option and just show the Bournemouth-based services, and we've got 594 of them. The positive thing of adding this postcode in is now you'll see over here that we're sorting by proximity. So each of these services here has been listed in how close they are to where I live or where this postcode is. And you'll also notice at the top of each card, it's now told you roughly how close it is to that postcode. So this first page here, I think they're all roughly within 1 mile of that postcode, but there's an extra kind of bonus to using this as well. If I now click to view the full information of a particular service and click view details, we get to a page that I'll come through later on where it explains a fair bit about the service available, its contact details, etc. But we also have a map here at the bottom. Because I typed in a postcode where it talks about the location of the service, we also now have a directions button as well. If I click on that, you'll see that quite quickly, after I've given permission to Google, quite quickly it has created a Google map based on the postcode I entered and the location of the particular service. So I can tell straight away that this will take 7 minutes in the car, it will take half an hour walk, or 10 minutes on the bike. So hopefully that's a really powerful and quick way where when you do identify a service for an individual, you can have a practical chat and a practical conversation about how reasonable it is that they'll be able to make it to that venue. And as I say, that's available here underneath the map on directions. But what you need to make sure is that you've put in a postcode for that option to be available. If I clear that away, and if I look at another service, it no longer has the directions option because there's no postcode added. To reassure you about the postcode and the age options, neither of these are recorded in the back end of the service finder. They are literally only used within your session. So we're not collecting data about people's postcodes and dates of birth. They are literally purely to enable your filters to help you get a better result. Okay, so type of attendance and type of support. These are two filters that are a little bit limited at the moment, and we're looking at their development. So type of attendance is literally, how can you engage in the service? But at the moment, each service is only has the option of one of these. So we have online, phone, venue, home visit, documents available in other forms. So if I click telephone, for example, I'm now seeing 143 services that primarily are offered by the phone. If I chose online, I see 368 services that are primarily offered online. Now, the problem here, I work for Community Action Network, and we have a venue, an office that people could attend. We also help people over the phone, and we also have lots of online options as well. So we would ideally be ticked against all three of these, but we would have to make a choice as to which is our primary service delivery. So that's something we're hoping to change in the future. But just bear in mind, if you use this filter, you're asking, can you show me the primary point of contact for this particular service? And then type of support. So this is different from type of service. Type of service is, I suppose, is the kind of theme of the service that you're looking for. Whereas type of support is more, how is it delivered? What's the nature of the activity? So here, for example, physical activity, if I apply that, we see there's 173 services that are primarily a physical activity. And equally, I can go over here and choose social activity. I see 307 services, and so on and so on. What I will say, though, is that, again, these are limited to one per service at the moment. And so There are some things, for example, that would be considered both social and physical, but we would have to have made a decision about which one is the primary nature of the service. It's also worth hovering over some of these things at the top. So one-to-one, actually, if you hover on it, you'll find is one-to-one assessment or advice, but there's also, I believe, one-to-one support as well. So again, we've had to make a decision about what's the best description of the service. So it may take a little bit of playing with to find the right filter for you. All of this stuff we are open to feedback on. And as the project continues, we're developing and growing this in line with frontline workers and members of the public's feedback. Okay, so that hopefully has given you a bit of an overview of each of the different filters. But as I said before, the key to this for me is making sure that you combine filters in a way that gives you a really specific result and a meaningful one for the people that you're working with. So I'm going to take a couple of scenarios now. So let's say an individual comes to see me and they identify as being in an older age group, and they'd quite like to look at services specifically targeted at people of a similar age. So I go into here and I choose the circumstance older person just to show me services specifically for older people. On a bit more of a discussion with them, they explain that they're looking for a social activity if possible. They'd quite like to get to meet people or get to speak to people. So I go up to type of support and I can choose social activity, and I've narrowed it down to 97 services straight away. On a bit more of a conversation with them, they explain that actually they're not very able at the moment to go out and about. They're not very mobile. And so, but they do feel quite confident with online engagement. And so they'd be interested in any online materials we've got available. So if I choose online as well, I've now narrowed it down quite quickly to 5 specific services that are for older people, that involve an element of socializing, and that they can access online. And if we scroll down, we'll see we've got a Monday morning friendship, monthly quiz, a variety hour, a topical issues group, and virtual voices, all of them hitting those categories that we described. So hopefully that shows you how quickly we can get a really specific result for the people that we're working with, instead of digging through pages and pages of maybe Google options or similar. And then if I wish, I can remove any of these options. So this individual might say to me, okay, that's brilliant, but can I have a look at the ones that aren't online as well? And I can remove that filter or any combination of those filters to take me back up and add other filters as I see fit. So I'm just going to clear those and give you another scenario as well. So now I have an individual come to see me and they've asked for support or looking for support around domestic abuse and personal safety, something similar. So we have an option in the service type for domestic violence and abuse and personal safety. I'm going to add that tag. Now I've narrowed it down to 66 services straight away. But on further conversation, that person identifies as being part of the LGBTQ plus community, and they'd specifically like to see services aimed at that particular community. So I'm going to add a circumstance for LGBTQ plus. And now you'll see we've immediately taken it down to 5 services specific to those groups. On further discussion, that individual says that they're not interested in kind of online information, and they're not up to going in and speaking to someone in person at the moment, but they'd quite like to talk to someone over the phone. So I'm going to add phone in here, and now I've got 3 services, again, specifically hitting this criteria. If I scroll down, we'll find we've got a conversion therapy helpline, a domestic abuse helpline, and a hate crime helpline, all aimed and all specifically for the LGBTQ plus community. So hopefully one of those would be an appropriate option for that individual. It might be though that they then have a kind of further chat with me and say, that's great, but actually what are all the helplines that are available regardless of how I identify? So again, I can go back here and go, okay, let's get rid of LGBTQ plus. And now we've got 15 services, and we've now broadened out to include those general ones. So we have BCHA domestic abuse service, anonymous reporting of sexual assault, confidential helpline, etc., etc. So as you'll see, again, we've managed to find a specific result initially, and then we've been able to broaden back out if needed to look at more options for that individual. Okay. I should probably also show you how you can save some tags now as well and reuse them again in the future. So let's just take a random example. So let's say I'm working with an individual who, let me look through the list, is dealing with grief or loss. So I add that tag in here and I find there are 78 services associated with that particular topic. But I work in a particular area. So I work in West Dorset and I'm interested in services that people living in West Dorset are eligible for. And it might be that I'm also interested in online information as well. So online information about dealing with grief or loss for individuals who are living in West Dorset. Now you see here, when I put these tags on, I've got the option to save tag list. And if I click on that, it gives me the option to give the particular set of tags a title. So I might just call this dealing with loss, excuse me, move my thing out of the way, West Dorset. And I can write a description if I really want, but I can click save to have that saved to Service Finder. Now to find my save tags, I'm just going to clear these out to take us back to the main list. And now I've got show save tags here. And you'll see that I've saved lots of tags for different examples. But if I scroll down to the bottom, dealing with loss, West Dorset is now saved as a set of tags. I can click apply tags, and straight away it takes me to the most recent version of the data for these particular types of service. So again, I'm just going to clear these out, but hopefully that shows you how you can quickly save any clusters that you find interesting, and you might go back to them again in the future with other clients, or again revisit with the same client in the future. Okay, a couple more bits and we're almost done, but I'll just talk you through the details that you see on the main page of a service, and then also how you can share services, which is also, we think, quite a strong element of the tool. So I'm going to click on 100 More Novels reading group and click View Details, and it takes me to this page we briefly saw before. So it tells me straight away at the top what the service is and who provides it. And it also gives me the contact information and the cost information as well. It has a last assured date. Now we assure everything on a cycle. So there's a 2, 4 or 6 month cycle, depending on how regularly the information changes for that service. And we reach out to them and follow up to try and update their records as swiftly as we can. We're due another set of updates next week. So hopefully you'll see some of these older dates begin to update to the new information. What that means, though, is that all this information in here is checked to make sure that the phone numbers, emails, and website links are all correct, and if there's been any changes to when the activity takes place as well. If I scroll down, you'll see we've got a description of the service, a little bit of information about the eligibility, and then, if relevant, there'll be a map and also the location. It also tells you how often it takes place, so the first Tuesday of every month from 5 till 6 in this case. And if I wanted to, I can copy to the clipboard the venue to then paste somewhere else. Right at the bottom, you've got a few other tags that just explain whatever information has been applied to this particular service. But really, that's just the key kind of overview, I suppose, for each of the services you have. If I wanted to, I've got the option to print this material as well. So you'll see down the right-hand side, there are various boxes ticked for include in print. So I might want to keep the contact information and the description, but I might decide that the eligibility criteria is not so relevant. But I might want to keep the map or the information about the venue. But I might, again, want to get rid of this tag list at the bottom. I then click print. It will take me to a view that's removed the bulk of the information we didn't want. What I will say is we're working with our developers. We don't see a need for all of this kind of website information at the top and bottom of the view. And also we want to work on the format so that the font size is a bit bigger and a bit better. But it gives you an option in the short term if you're working with someone that would benefit from a printed version instead. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the main Service Finder view. And now we're going to talk about how you can share services with colleagues, or more importantly, with the people you're working with. So when I'm looking, it doesn't matter if I applied filters or not. When I'm looking at these service cards, you'll see that each of them has a little star next to their details button. And if I was to click some of them, so I'm going to click Access Beef and scroll down a bit further and choose Active Monitoring for Children and Young People, and then go a bit further and choose the Park Community Centre activity timetable. If I scroll back to the top, under my account, I've got the option to look at favourites. So if I now click on this, it takes me to a new screen, still with the same filters, but it takes me to what we call the canvas. So the canvas is an area where it shows you only the services that you've favorited in that session today. And then you have the option to save these and to share them with other people. So if I create a label on this right-hand side, and let's say, let's call this training session services, and save label, we'll then see at the top here, we've got training session services has popped up. So I click on that one, it now takes me to the summary of the ones that I've favorited in today's session. Equally, if I clicked on an older one, it's showing me the summary of the other services I favorited in a previous session. So we're going to go back to our one, the training session services, and now I want to share that with someone. So on this right-hand side again, we've got share favorites, and I've got two options once I've chosen the specific list that I wish to share. So training session services, easy for me to say. I now have a HTML option and a URL option. So I'm just going to choose the HTML option, and it says services have been copied. And now I'm just going to move Microsoft Teams out of the way. I'm going to open up a Word document, pretend it's an email for our purposes, and just paste that into this box. So as you see, it's dumped in the information about the name of the service, and then also a link to that specific service's information. And I can do anything I like to change this other information up here, of course. So list of searches from today's session, or whatever I want to put. So you can copy this quite quickly into an email and share it with colleagues or an individual working with. But there's also another option, which I think is even better. So if I close that fake email, and we are now back in the service finder, back looking at our list of favorites. And if I go to share favorites and choose that list again, I also get the option for URL. So now I get to add a new title to this particular URL that I might want to share. So let's pretend that these services have been identified by a gentleman called Bob that I've been working with. So I've spoken with him, we've identified these services, and now I want to share them with him. So I'm going to call these Bob's services, and I'm going to click save. And it's now created a link for me to share. So if I go to my browser, paste that link, what you'll see here is Bob now has a link. It's Bob's services. It lists the free services specifically that we favorited during our session. And Bob can click on any one of them to find out the full information, and he can go back to his list to review them at any point. The good news is that this link lasts for up to a year. So it might be I'm speaking with Bob at one point and he is asking for help, but it might be that he doesn't feel confident enough to engage with that help until a week, 2 weeks, or even months later. The good news is that on this link that I sent him, whenever he clicks back on it, it will show him the most recent version of the data relating to the services we favorited. So if the contact details change, if the email address changed, the website changed, when Bob clicks back on this link, it will show him the up-to-date version. And equally, if a service is stopped and is no longer being shown, because it no longer takes place, then it will not appear in this list for Bob anymore. He'll only see those that are still active. So we think that's a really powerful way, again, to share contact information with people. You can add that hyperlink against a word in an email or in an email, and you can add it obviously to a text message or similar to share those services with somebody who needs them. Okay, I think that's probably all of the information we wanted to cover today. The final thing when looking at favorites is you need to go back up here, My Account, and click Service View to take you back to the original service view. And then you're back at the opportunity to filter with the data of the full list. But if you do have any questions and you want to reach out for any support, our email address is just servicefinder@cam100.org. There are also some options down the bottom here where you can suggest a service or suggest an organization or venue. And you have the support button here, as I said, that will email us. But please reach out with any feedback. Ultimately for us, the more people using the tool, the better. And the more we can develop the tool to reflect your needs, the better for us as well. Thank you for watching today, and all the best.